Payday 3 has finally released, and we are going to get into all the details, the good stuff, the bad stuff, pretty much everything. The main thing I like about Payday 3 compared to Payday 2, and what I think is the biggest improvement going from Payday 2 to Payday 3, is the shooting and the gunplay. It feels so much better than Payday 2. It feels better to use the guns sound better. I mean, my biggest problem with Payday 2's weapons is they didn't feel like they had any oomph or weight or just impact to them, and then in Payday 3 the guns have a lot more impact and weight to them, and it's just more fun to shoot the guns, I feel, in this game compared to Payday 2. The game looks better than Payday 2 in pretty much every way, and the environments seem to be more reactive, and like when you shoot things, the impact feels more because there's more effects, and it looks like the environment's getting destroyed a little bit, which is good, and that's better for the most part than Payday 2. But for some reason, there's also one part that looks worse, and for some reason I've been seeing this more and more in new games. I don't know what it is, but it's blacked out windows for cars. I don't know what it is, but newer games seem to have more blacked out windows for cars and then some older games. Like in Payday 2, you could see the interiors of cars, but in Payday 3 you cannot. You cannot see in the car windows. I don't know why. It's really not that big of a deal, to be honest, but it is a downgrade. And I've seen blacked out windows also in Gotham Knights, and something about blacked out windows in cars just bother me. I find all the heists in Payday 3 to be different and unique in some way, and I really like the design of them, but there are only 8 heists in the game, whereas Payday 2 had 12, but some in Payday 2 were kind of small, and some of them were basically like the same map, with different variations, and the new ones seem to be a bit more interesting, a bit better designed, and more thought out than what Payday 2 launched with. But again, there are only 8 heists, but I do pretty much like all the heists, to be honest. That's not the same with Payday 2, where there's definitely heist in Payday 2 where I just absolutely don't like. There's not a heist in Payday 3 yet that I don't really like, and I really like the last 2 heists of the game, with my favorite heist probably being Golden Shark in that bank. It kind of feels like Big Bank, but smaller, but I like that bank heist. It's just fun. This game has better enemy type designs, and I feel like there's more variety in the law enforcement and better outfit designs for law enforcement, and the law enforcement AI is definitely smarter, at least in some areas. Like, they'll actually hide behind their shield unit, so like if there's a shield unit pushing in, there'll be some units hiding behind him, so you have to get the shield unit before you can get some of the ones behind him. And of course you can shoot, depending on what gun you have, I think you can just shoot enough and you can break the glass that's on the shield, and then you can shoot the shield's face, or the shield guy's face, and then you get the people behind them. But they also won't rush in right away, so like if you start the heist and then they arrive, they won't immediately rush in if you have hostages, and you can trade hostages. Depending on how many hostages you have, you can trade a ton of hostages for a bunch of extra time, and they won't even push in, but they'll push in early if you shoot at them, or if you shoot your gun, then they'll push in. But if you don't shoot your gun, you have a bunch of hostages, then they won't push in right away. And then also you can use hostages as shields, and they'll try not to shoot the hostage. Like, at least most of the time it seems that they stop firing at you when you have a hostage shield. But then sometimes I guess they just forget that you have a hostage or something, and they don't seem to care, and they just start blasting. I also think Payday 3 has better stealth than Payday 2. In Payday 2, it was all about concealment, silenced weapons, ECM jammers, all that stuff. In Payday 3, there is no concealment. There is ECM jammers, but they're not as essential. Like, they're useful, don't get me wrong, they're useful during stealth, but they're not like essential. And you also don't have to put on your mask to do everything. So like in Payday 2, you had to put on your mask to really start the heist and get it going. But in Payday 3, if you haven't put your mask on yet, you can walk around the bank freely or walk around areas freely at certain times. You know, like if it's a bank, for example, you can go in all the public areas and not be suspicious, and then you only have to watch out for guards in the private areas, but you can sneak around and do everything without pulling out your gun and without putting your mask on. I think really the only time you really have to put your mask on for some stealth heists is when you want to take the loot. Other than that, you can do a bunch of stuff like open, grab key cards, get QR codes, unlock doors, progress the objectives, and do like all that stuff without even having to put your mask on. And I feel like stealth in this game is actually more fun, or at least it is to me. Now, I don't have much to say about the music. We all know Payday 2 had a great soundtrack. If you play Payday 2, you know that. And there is someone new behind the soundtrack of Payday 3, but I think the soundtrack fits the game most of the time, and I find the music good for the most part. I think there was only one soundtrack I heard, because I can remember one soundtrack, one piece of music on the mission Rock the Cradle, or at least the heist Rock the Cradle, and I just didn't really care for it. But the rest of the time, it felt like Payday music. I mean, it just felt like action music. But during Rock the Cradle heist, there was one song or music that played, and I didn't really like it. I didn't care for it. Now, I complained about it in the beta, and I really knew it wasn't going to change, but the menu in this game is atrocious. I know some people say that it's fine, but it's honestly it's horrible to navigate. Payday 2's menu and shop/buying system, just everything to do with the menu is way better in Payday 2, and Payday 3's menu and navigation is horrible. It sucks. And on top of that, there's also no pre-planning map or like menu really at all. At least not like Payday 2 has it. Payday 2 is actually starting to get more in depth with pre-planning at the end of its life cycle. But I guess it was all for nothing, since the best this game can do is replace it with a favor system, which you can choose things like med bag, armor bag, ammo bag, or zipline bag, and those 4 options are basically every map. And then sometimes I think like 1 or 2 maps have a rare extra thing, like you can throw your loot in a dumpster or something, and instead of having to take it all the way somewhere else, or like, oh hey, this extra door is unlocked like once in a while. But there's no looking at a map of the location, there's no placing it where you want, or none of that, like none of the other options like Payday 2 had. Like, for example, delayed alarm, vantage points, different extractions. None of that is in this game, and it's replaced by the favor system, which is you go to the shop, you buy a med bag, an ammo bag, armor bag, something like that, and then when the mission starts, you can click on it, and it will spawn somewhere in the map. Do you have a choice where it spawns? No, you don't. Lobbies are also atrocious, and by lobbies I mean the lack of lobbies, because there really isn't a lobby. There's no lobby browser, there's no finding a match in the map, you know, of the city or whatever. There's no persistent lobbies. Instead, you click on the mission, you click to matchmake, you can invite some people to your team. If you have some friends, you can invite them at the matchmaking screen, and then if you're trying to get randoms, you hope the game will put people in your lobby, as most of the time if you're trying to play with randoms, it fails to get full lobbies or even a single other person in your lobby. It just fails to put anyone in your lobbies, or you'll try to matchmake and it'll fail completely, and you'll have to go back to the main menu because you had a matchmaking error and you can't even matchmake, and you have to matchmake in order to even play by yourself. So yeah, the whole lobby system is terrible. You can make it private if you want, or invite only if you want to play by yourself, which I did for some levels, but then I tried playing with people, and you actually really can't play with people because it's hard to get into lobbies with other people, at least if you want to play with randoms. It is just a complete mess. The lobbies are just terrible. There's also a lack of dual wielding in Payday 3 for some reason. Like in Payday 2, they added dual wielding and you could dual wield weapons, But there's a lack of that in Payday 3. And by lack of that, I mean there is no dual wielding to be seen in Payday 3. And there's actually just a whole lot less weapons in Payday 3 than there was in Payday 2. And I mean a whole lot less weapons. I think there's actually in total like one sniper rifle. One or two sniper rifles. I'm pretty sure it's one sniper rifle unless I missed one. But there's like a very small amount of weapons. It honestly blows my mind how little weapons there are. Like, you think with only 8 heists, maybe they focus more on weapons and stuff, but no. There's about like as many weapons as there is heist. Now that's not exactly true because there's more than 8 weapons, but there's just so little amount of weapons, and there's no dual wielding, and there's no like special weapons. There's also no melee weapons to choose from or unlock, and all you can do is hit people with your weapon, the butt of your weapon, which does absolutely nothing. So I don't even know why it's in the game, to be honest, because you can smack a guard in the face 25 times and he will not go down, no matter how many times you hit him in the face with your weapon. So I really don't know what that's for. There's no melee in this game, basically. Now, the skill tree in Payday 3 I find to be more basic and bland in certain ways compared to Payday 2 skill tree. Like, for example, the top of a skill tree in Payday 2 was a bit exciting. You know, you get something like Inspire, to be able to revive teammates at a distance, or the biggest armor in the game once you completed the Enforcer skill tree. You know, you got all the way to the top at the Enforcer skill tree. But in Payday 3, the skills at the end of the trees are like increased ADS speed. Like, somehow that's supposed to be, like, it's useful, don't get me wrong, sometimes increased ADS speed can be useful, but it's like boring. It's just kind of boring. You go through the entire skill tree and you get increased ADS speed. That's pretty boring. Or increased reload speed, or increased amount of grenades. They're all just kind of boring compared to the more unique skills that I feel were in Payday 2 at the end of the skill trees. And some of the skills are broken, like Engineer. It says you're required to have the Engineer skill to equip the sentry gun, but when I had it equipped, it didn't let me use the sentry gun or equip the sentry gun. But then I unequipped it, and then it let me bring the sentry gun. I don't have no idea, like, the skill tree is just broken. And even the sentry gun skill tree is more basic and bland than Payday 2's sentry gun skill tree. There's actually less to it than Payday 2's sentry guns. There is also no more trip mines or C4 either, and there's also no saw. So it's just like, it's missing like a whole lot of stuff. There is a few things that are kind of like, that were like certain skills that were in Payday 2 that are in Payday 3, but a little bit different. Like, there's kind of Swan Song. I'm pretty sure I think it was Swan Song, where you can, like, instead of going down right away, you can survive for a little bit longer. That's in Payday 3 too. It's just a little bit different, but for the most part, it's just more basic and bland. I feel like it's just kind of more boring. Everything in Payday 3's skill tree is basically based around rush, edge, and grit, which is like increased damage, increased speed, and increased armor or something like that. And everything around the skill tree is basically based on just those 3 things. On top of this skill tree that I find to be a bit more basic and boring, there's also no perk deck system like Payday 2. I know the perk deck system was introduced later in Payday 2's life cycle, but you think because you introduced it in Payday 2 later on and it was something actually interesting and you could, you know, make more interesting builds, and like the perk decks were just, I don't know, there's more ways to customize your build and make your build with perk decks, but for some reason that's also not in this game. So there's no perk deck system, no different interesting perk decks that change out your throwable for something, just nothing to do with perk decks in this game. There's also no special ammo types like Dragon's Breath, Slugs, Poison, you know, the stuff that was kind of introduced later on, or, well, a little bit later. I think it wasn't that much later, but post-launch, you know, special weapon types or special ammo types, but there's also no special ammo types in Payday 3 either, so there's there's that. I actually was looking forward to something like using Dragon's Breath in this game, but there's no Dragon's Breath, and there's no poison, and there's no slugs. And I thought they would at least have poison, since they introduced more and more poison items at the end of Payday 2. But it seems like, along with other things, it's just kind of a system that's just been removed. Now, don't get me wrong, this game can be fun. I mean, there's actually quite a bit of fun to have in this game, but going from Payday 2 to Payday 3, this game just feels like it's severely lacking content. And I know there doesn't have to be as much content as Payday 2, because Payday 2 was around, you know, forever, and I know some content that was in Payday 2 can't be in Payday 3 because of licensing issues and stuff like that. But I expected just a little bit more heist, a little bit more guns, and some of the, you know, same mechanics, like a fleshed out skill tree, a perk deck system, some different ammo types, a whole lot more guns. I honestly am a little upset about the lack of guns. It's just like there's like so little amount of weapon type or weapon variations. It's kind of crazy. I mean, there's just less heist, less guns, less characters, less masks, less unique skills, no melee weapons, less throwable types, less, what are they called? You know, med bag. There's med bag, armor bag, sentry, ammo bag. That's it for, you know, droppables or whatever you want to call them. There's pretty much less of everything in this game, and that's my main problem with this game, is the lack of content it has. And it will only have the same amount of DLC that Payday 2 did at launch after the first year of DLC. I don't know how many weapons and stuff else or free stuff this game's gonna get. Hopefully it gets a good amount, but it pains me to say this, but the lack of content in this game and the horrible menus just make this game kind of disappointing for me. And I know some people are having fun with it, and that's good, because I'm having fun with it. I'm not saying I'm not having fun with Payday 3, and I'm probably gonna be playing Payday 3 more. I'm just saying the game, to me, is just a little bit disappointing, and I'm not sure if it was worth buying just yet. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you guys think about Payday 3 so far and this video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you want to be subscribed. And I'll see you next time.